Broadcasting live from atop the Rocky Mountains, the crossroads of the West. You are listening to the Liberty Roundtable Radio Talk Show.
All right, back with you live, ladies and gentlemen. Sam Bushman, Sheriff Richard Mack on your radio. Sheriff Scott Jenkins from Virginia with us. I believe he's been targeted, and we need to get to the bottom of that, ladies and gentlemen. Director of National Intelligence, Tulsi Gabbard, declassified some documents from the Biden administration, revealing how they really wanted to target domestic threats as they saw it. I submit Sheriff Mack, Sheriff Scott Jenkins are at the top of the list. And the problem I have with Sheriff Jenkins' situation is they say he took bribes for $75,000. Then they say he also put people in positions where they weren't qualified to be there. I challenge all that and say we need to follow the money and we need to follow due process. And that's where, we're rioting around the country about due process for this illegal gang member, Judge Harvie Wilkinson, on due process. And he chided the Trump administration for not affording due process to this illegal thug. Now, what's interesting is you got congressmen spending money going overseas to deal with this and to talk about it. And what about due process for Scott Jenkins? Okay. We are asking President Donald Trump to issue a full pardon for Sheriff Scott Jenkins, ladies and gentlemen. Why? Because we don't believe he received appropriate due process. So he had a jury in Charlottesville, Virginia, not even in his county. The jury had 10 women and 2 men on it, none of them in law enforcement. At some point, how do you say 10 men and 2 women in a completely different, absolutely liberal county, I believe selected for intentional prosecution? How is that due process? Sheriff Mack, let's start with you on this really quick. Then we'll let Sheriff Scott Jenkins respond. But I don't see how that's due process, though. None of these people understand law enforcement. None of these people are even in the county. How is this his peers? I don't get it.
Well, the due process was stood on its head in several different ways. But also now he has lost everything on this, and we're talking everything. He's exhausted all his financial resources, and he can't even afford to file an appeal. And so this whole thing stinks from the get-go. It's a made-up, trumped-up charge. He was not guilty of a crime. He never was. Not allowed to give the evidence as required by the Due Process Amendment, which is the 6th Amendment. Not allowed to give the evidence that he had. I was hoping to testify there, but the judge, obviously in the case, Judge Vallow, Vallou, just didn't allow it. It says, oh, you've been given all these, as Sheriff Jenkins said, he was given crates and crates and crates of evidence, suppose that the government had against him. And to be able to go through that, it would have taken an army of attorneys to go through all that. But then when he wanted to allow certain evidence that would have exculpatory evidence, he wasn't allowed that. And so now that they've ruined him, they want to put him 10 years in prison. Never committed a crime in his life, and even if there was a crime, this would be a crime that a lot of politicians have been charged with, including Barack Obama, and he got a little slap on the hand, and that was $300,000 loan or donation to his campaign. This would be a probation and a little misdemeanor or something or other, but it wouldn't be destroy a man's life, destroy his family, and put him in prison, which 10 years, he's going to be in there with thugs that went after.
And Joe Biden, we have this about Joe Biden, and all he got was a pension and Secret Service protection for the rest of his life, and he got to walk free, right?
Exactly. So, Sam, this is something. I don't care if it was Scott Jenkins or Sam Gerard, who's the Amish farmer that you brought up. I don't care who it is. I do not like. I hate injustice, and I hate corruption. And this is what Sheriff Jenkins stood against his entire career of 34 years, 12 years as sheriff. And let's remember, one of the first things he did when he got elected is he called me and asked his training officer to work out CSPOA constitutional training for law enforcement, and we did 2 sessions, Sam, one in the morning, one in the afternoon. So all of his officers, all of his staff, dispatchers, everybody were required by him to attend our training. Oh, that every office in this country would do the same as did Sheriff Jenkins. He is a good man, Sheriff Scott Jenkins, and as soon as we get over this, CSPOA is going to honor him even more.
Amen to that. Based on this idea of Director of National Intelligence Tulsi Gabbard unclassifying this or declassifying this information, I think somebody needs to file a lawsuit against the general government and say you guys are promoting domestic terrorism. And it's interesting to me that this Charlottesville relates to Sheriff Scott Jenkins, also related to, hey, attacking all the right-wing conservatives that want to defend historical statues and everything else. And there was a big old meltdown in Charlottesville, and all the liberals and Antifa and Black Lives Matter, everybody else ran free, and all the conservatives went to prison and everything else. You think there's a coincidence there? We need to start digging into this and following the money. Sheriff Jenkins, I submit to you that this is a due process discussion.
Sam, you mentioned the riots in Charlottesville just then, and think for a moment across the nation. Cities burn, like Richmond, Virginia. Richmond, Virginia fired the police chief when he decided to start making arrests against the city council's orders and doing his job, and they fired him. And 11 days later, they fired his replacement. Both of them, the reason they were fired is because they said enough is enough when they watched the vehicles burning, their city burning, and arrests needing to be made. They said, guys, go do your job. Start arresting those people. And both of them, 11 days apart, a chief and an acting chief were fired within 11 days by the city mayor and council, because that's what you have, that when you saw it across the country, name for me any jurisdiction that had those riots take place where the sheriff was handling the law enforcement of that area. It didn't happen. Name for me a place
because they know sheriffs would stand up and stop it, most likely, right?
Yeah, well, and because we answer directly to the people, and the citizens are not going to stand for that. But when you have a body, a city council, what have you, that make decisions, I mean, let's face it, watch Congress act, watch state legislators act. Everything's slow, everything, But my point in what I was going to say is simply sheriffs. That's the key. A strong sheriff, and let's face it, across the nation, 3,100 sheriffs, by and large, they are conservative in nature, their backgrounds, regardless of what letters by their name on a campaign. Those sheriffs have what I feel are, they represent basically America at its heart. I think that's why we have a Trump back as president now, because, so much of the left, so much of the crap that we put up with, enough is enough. And when it all boils down and you take away everything but just, the raw values of America and right and wrong, law and order, when you look at that, the American sheriff, that is that last line of defense. And those in federal law enforcement, AG offices and things, the deep state. Now, I don't mean current like Pam Bondi and Taz Patel. Thank God we've got, Trump and them in office.
Well,
now.
Hopefully
but
we can get one of those people to pay attention to this case as well.
Well, we're not going to have them forever. And that's my wake up. What I'm trying to get to people to realize, even if I'm going into a prison cell in a few weeks, the America needs to wake up and realize we will not have Trump forever. We will have a Biden-type DOJ again. And God help us if we don't have sheriffs wake up and realize when COVID hit, I mean, my God, I fought the First Amendment. We had state police and town police wanting to lock people up for worshiping in their parking lots with masks because they were told by a health director they couldn't. And when they said that, I stood up and said, no, it will not happen. I run the jail, for one thing. They will not be put in jail if you make the arrest. And if my officers respond, we will get involved and stop it. It will not happen here. It's unconstitutional. And when I said that, suddenly the media, they didn't want to report on it then, because when I took that stand, suddenly the head of the division state police, the local chief of police, all of them changed their story and said, well, we won't respond to those calls. We'll direct them to the health department, because they didn't want to fight with the local sheriff who said, no, it will not happen. So whether it's First Amendment, Second Amendment, that right to worship, that right to bear arms, all those things that I know I have stood on and had those battles, and quickly they back down. It takes a strong person to step up, and your citizens and others will quickly follow and stand behind you. But we have to educate and get people willing to do that. And that's where America's sheriffs are the problem for these deep state people. They realize, we'll only have Trump for so long. We'll only have that DOJ for so long. And they tested us in 2020, and they know how far they can go. And right now, we have got to educate and wake people up to realize, if this happens to me, if I'm locked away in a cell for doing let's face it, you could go after any sheriff in the country then when you want to shut them down and say, well,
and that is the quintessential problem, ladies and gentlemen. We're out of time. Thank you, Sheriff Scott Jenkins. We pray for and ask President Trump to issue a full pardon for Sheriff Scott Jenkins. Hang tight. You're listening to Liberty Roundtable Live.
Do you know what is great about America? Ask an Immigrant. Ask an Immigrant is a new podcast dedicated to helping Americans, especially our youth, value, appreciate, and be grateful for the freedoms we have here in America. Join host Lydia Wallace-Nuttall as she interviews immigrants from around the world to discover their inspiring personal stories about why they came to America. To learn more about why America is the most prosperous, greatest country in the world, download the Loving Liberty app or go to lovingliberty.net.
In the medical field, IT security is crucial. Our highly skilled consultants are HIPAA certified and have 20-plus years of experience servicing medical clinics, billing, and supply companies. We offer comprehensive endpoint protection, guarding your computers and servers against all stages of threats. And with our 24/7 monitoring services, you'll never worry about extensive downtime again. Ready to level up your IT support? Call 801-706-6980 today and discover how great IT services can be with managed IT services.
Cybercrime is exploding. Take Sarah from Sweet Delights, whose world crumbled after having to close with not being able to bounce back. Small businesses are prime targets, but the right strategies can keep yours safe. Jay Hill, CEO of Network Providers, has co-authored The Cyber Playbook Simplifies Cybersecurity for Business Owners with Strategies to avoid costly breaches and fines. Build a strong cyber attack response. Secure your business with key protections. Cyber threats aren't slowing down, but you can stay ahead. Protect your business. Ensure its security for tomorrow. Get the Cyber Playbook today at networkprovidersinc.com/cyber-playbook or call 385-446-5500 now.
Welcome back to Liberty Roundtable. I'm Eldon Stahl with my good friend Sam Bushman, and we are coming back. We just heard from the sheriff, Scott Jensen, and really a tragedy that he's going to be, at least the plans are, to have him go into prison for 10 years for after a trial that was very lacking in due process. And, we need to stand up for our sheriffs. We need to stand up for justice. And sometimes there's injustices that happen. And it seemed like his downfall was associating with what some people consider, but I don't, radical right-wing extremists such as the...
well, that's his downfall and standing up for the principles that make America great, too, and everything. What I find interesting, though, is you've got Judge Harvie Wilkinson on this due process for thing, ripping apart Donald Trump, saying, hey, you didn't give this illegal alien due process. And I'm thinking, wait a minute, we've got a constitutionally elected sheriff, and you didn't give him due process, and no one will even lift a finger, Eldon.
Yeah, it's such an upside-down world that we live in. Seems like we're living in the rule of the judges or the lawyers rather than the rule of law. So it's the rule of men.
I thought they were living in the Twilight Zone.
But there are sheriffs that are standing up, though, still, and we need more of them to wake up, as Sheriff Jenkins wisely pointed out. And here's the latest headline for Sheriff Richard Mack to respond to, and then Eldon can respond as well. The Polk County Sheriff's Office in Florida announced that it busted 5 illegal aliens tied to the violent Venezuelan gang. What is it called? Tren de Aragua or whatever it is?
Tren de Aragua.
Tren de Aragua. And I guess the Blaze has the piece. And Sheriff Grady Judd detailed the arrest during a Friday press briefing, explaining that 2 of the suspects were confirmed as members and 3 were identified as, quote, associates of the gang. Sheriff?
Well, Grady Judd, Sheriff Judd, strikes again, and more power to him. He's a great sheriff. I wish we could add to his name that he's a constitutional sheriff, and we hope to have him at one of our events here pretty soon. But he is a very good leader. He's a lawman's lawman, and more power to him. And if he got 5, that means there's 500 still there.
You're probably correct on that. What I find interesting, though, is, hey, he's standing tall, and the news doesn't know what to do with him, right? It was a Friday press briefing. So what the sheriff does, and this is something instructive that we need to pay attention to, the sheriff has his own press briefing. And because of the new media taking center stage, the word gets out even if the mainstream press blocks it. They've lost their gatekeeping authority. The new media is winning, and they can't stop it anymore, Sheriff. If a sheriff has a good press conference and the new media covers it, it's getting out, right?
The media doesn't know what to do with him, but he knows what to do with them.
You got that right. Anyway, I find that an interesting story in relation to especially the Scott Jenkins scenario. Isn't Scott Jenkins, that was his big deal, too. He was basically stopping illegal aliens and everything else. And this is a throwdown discussion right now. I don't know that there's a bigger discussion in the nation.
Well, it certainly, this reminds me of, remember the Gosnell story back a few years ago, that movie that came out about in Philadelphia? This guy was doing abortions and all kinds of insanitary, terrible things, right? Finally, guy went to prison. Well, the thing that got the word out about that is just a blogger. One person went to the trial, and this lady, she looked around and she's like, well, this should be the biggest story probably in the state, if not the nation. This guy, being on trial as abortionist. And nobody else is here covering it. Why am I the only one covering it? So basically, she shamed the legacy media into covering it, or they wouldn't have covered it. And we wouldn't even know about this unless whoever that blogger was there.
Sheriff Mack?
Well, that's exactly correct. And, once again, as Sheriff Jenkins was saying, the deep state, people call that a conspiracy theory. Of course, the deep state puts that out. They're in charge of the media. And the joke, the devastating damage that a bought off and paid for and bribed media does, that they have caused America, again, this is just another example of that.
Mm-hmm. That's right. Well, it takes a lot to right those wrongs, but there's so much good that a actually free press, as the founders intended it, can do.
You got that right. There's a lot that we can do, folks. We just need to get involved. And I feel like the American people are kind of feeling like they've already lost their country and the fat lady's already sung. I don't see it that way, folks. I see that we got a lot ahead of us that we can do to make a big difference. Let me give you a quick example to make the point. Salem Radio Network. I think they're great. We use them for news. They've got great talk show hosts. They do their very best to promote, Christian values and all that they do. Anyway, Salem Radio Network is now producing a 1-hour special show for affiliates on the first 100 days of the Trump administration. They say it'll air on Tuesday, April 29th. It will take the place of the third hour of the Larry Elder's show, or Larry Elder show at 8 p.m. Eastern time. Talkers Magazine has the piece, but I find this interesting. They're literally going to do a expose. They're going to talk to congressmen and senators and all these different people. They say the 100 Days of Trump is being hosted by Larry Elder with co-host, and then they basically say they'll talk to all kinds of people, White House officials, cabinet members, members of the House, the Senate. Anyway, also other Salem radio hosts. It's pretty big for the media, the new media in Salem, to say, hey, we're going to break down the 100 days from a fair, honest perspective. Sheriff, that's a great start, right?
Yeah, Sam, it is. It's a great start. But speaking of starts, I don't know that much about Eldon's background. Maybe we need to hear a little bit of review for our audience.
Oh, man, Eldon is the field director for the John Birch Society, Eldon Stahl. Ladies and gentlemen.
That's right.
And he joins us all the time on the radio every month, so people know who he is, Sheriff, and that's who Eldon is. And I bring this up because it's something really, when you talk about the John Birch Society, they're doing a great job. They promote the New American Magazine, which is huge. There's a lot going on with what they're doing. Eldon?
Well, I sure appreciate that introduction, Sam. That's very kind of you. Yeah, we actually, this is Earth Day. And any of you that are listening live, go to jbs.org and you can register for tonight's webinar. It's actually a premiere of a documentary, and you know how much it takes to put it together, a documentary. It's called Unearthing the CO2 Pipelines. And, of course, the first two letters, U and N, are in capital letters, so this connects to the United Nations. But talks about how people in the Midwest lost so much of their liberties trying to fight, but they were quite successful trying to fight these CO2 pipelines that companies wanted to put through using eminent domain through their prime farmland in South Dakota, North Dakota, Iowa, places like that. And kind of connects it to the larger picture of what's going on as far as the environmental movement. So great way to celebrate or maybe observe, mourn, whatever you want to call it, Earth Day today. It's at 6 p.m. Mountain, so whatever time zone you're in, but just go to jbs.org and it's a free webinar. So that's my little plug for that.
There's also an interesting headline that goes along with this that I think is really important for people to understand. If you go to thenewamerican.com, there's a petition, and the petition is to stop carbon capture subsidies, written by Rebecca Terrell. Right. Great article to highlight some of this too, right?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, a lot of this, you like the wind farms and so many of these other boondoggles, they would not exist in the free market without special tax credits, subsidies, you name it, that happens to be put on the back of, average Joe like you and me. And, I guess if the science were so good, you would think there would be a demand for it without having to create a great government subsidy for something like this. But yeah, that's what's going on. The tax credits for these CO2 pipelines, and quite dangerous actually. So you want to see the documentary webinar, and it'll be up for I think 30 days for free if you can't watch it tonight. But it's so many of those things are that way, and they're trying to overthrow our liberties through such nice sounding things like saving the earth, right?
Hang tight, ladies and gentlemen. Quick break. I'm Sam Bushman. I've got Sheriff Richard Mack with me, CSPOA.org. Become a member of the posse today of the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association. I've also got Eldon Stahl with me, Field Director for the John Birch Society, jbs.org, thenewamerican.com. We continue in seconds on your radio.
Exposing corruption. Informing citizens. Pursuing liberty. You're listening to Liberty News Radio.
News this hour from townhall.com. I'm Rich Thomason. President Trump is leaving no doubt about his support for Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth. The president asked about another Signal chat controversy, specifically Hegseth sharing information about pending airstrikes on Yemen with his wife and others.
Here we go again. Just a waste of time. He is doing a great job.
Why do you still have confidence?
Because he's doing a great job. Thanks, sir. Ask the Houthis how he's doing.
A reference to the U.S. airstrikes on the Iran-backed rebels who, prior to those strikes, had repeatedly attacked commercial shipping in the Mideast. The White House says no classified information was shared by Hegseth. Virginia's Republican governor is tracking with the Trump administration's crackdown on criminal illegal aliens. He's taken hundreds of suspected gang members off the streets of the Commonwealth.
Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin is delivering on his promise to prioritize public safety and uphold the rule of law. In a significant victory for the Trump administration's agenda, Youngkin announced that the state's newly established Homeland Security Task Force has arrested more than 500 criminal illegal immigrants, including over 130 with known gang affiliations. According to Youngkin, of the 521 arrests made since the task force started in February, 132 are affiliated with gangs such as MS-13, Tren de Aragua, and other transnational organized crime organizations and criminal gangs. Bernie Bennett reporting.
The wife of former Democratic U.S. Senator Bob Menendez, Nadine Menendez, has been convicted on charges of teaming up with her husband to take bribes of cash, gold bars, and a luxury car. Bob Menendez to begin serving an 11-year prison term in June. And Pope Francis' funeral scheduled to take place Saturday, 4 a.m. Eastern Time. On Wall Street this morning, a rally is underway. The Dow is up 795 points. More on these stories at townhall.com.
Financing a home, especially in today's market, is one of the biggest decisions you'll make for your family. Work with a mortgage company that puts you first. I do. Work with a lender founded on biblical principles like do unto others as you'd have them do unto you. I do. It's Mike Gallagher for the only mortgage company I've used for almost a decade now when financing or refinancing Fellowship Home Loans. I'm friends with the owners, Mike and Brian. I even have them on my show occasionally. I know the care their team puts into every single customer. I can personally tell you that it's a smooth, stress-free process, and that's due to Fellowship's level of service and expertise that puts you in the right loan for your family and your goals. There's a reason Fellowship Home Loans is flooded with 5-star reviews. Whether purchasing a home or a cash-out refi to consolidate some higher interest debt, you can trust Fellowship Home Loans. Start the process. Make the call. 800-510-MIKE, 800-510-MIKE, 800-510-6453. Fellowship Home Loans, mortgage lending by the book.
Nationwide Mortgage Bankers, Equal Housing Lender, NMLS number 819382.
I have a question. Can a nation conceived in liberty carry its head high if it denies protection to the youngest and most vulnerable of its citizens? Can a country founded on God-given rights continue to thrive without understanding that life is a precious gift from our Creator? I believe that great nations and great civilizations spring from a people who have a moral compass. I don't think a civilization can long endure that does not have respect for all human life, born and not yet born. I will be in earnest. I will not equivocate, and I will not excuse. I will not retreat an inch, and I will be heard. One thing I promise you, I will always take a stand for life.
Experience the untamed spirit of the American West with Range Magazine. Each issue is a visual journey featuring award-winning photography and compelling stories that capture the heart of ranching and rural life. Stay informed on the challenges and triumphs of those who live and work on the land. Subscribe today and receive quarterly editions delivered to your doorstep, and join a community that cherishes the enduring legacy of the Western frontier. Visit rangemagazine.com to subscribe.
This is a battle between truth and deceit, a battle between forces that would enslave this country in darkness, and between a media that wants to present you with the truth. We are being censored. America's news outlets no longer provide the truth. 90% of news outlets in the United States are controlled by 6 corporations. The mission of the Epoch Times is to chase the truth, to ground all statements in fact.
TheEpochTimes.com.
Broadcasting live from atop the Rocky Mountains, the crossroads of the West. You are listening to the Liberty Roundtable Radio Talk Show.
Back with you live, ladies and gentlemen. I guess it's Earth Day. Are you celebrating Earth Day? I'm celebrating God created the Earth Day. Absolutely. But the propaganda surrounding it for political purposes and government manipulation and everything else, we have got to reject, ladies and gentlemen, big time. And the John Birch Society doing a great job. JBS.org is where you can check this out. But they're really doing a focus. The headline says, petition to stop carbon capture subsidies is available at thenewamerican.com. Who's behind the CO2 pipelines? This powerful documentary uncovers how global elites are using carbon pipelines to seize private property, to silence farmers, and really to promote global government through the United Nations. It's an incredible documentary available at jbs.org now. Great stuff. Really a way to make a difference by documenting these things. Sheriff Mack, let's start with you. Documentaries are really the way people are getting great education now, like never before.
Or you go to the CSPOA Las Vegas convention, and you have farmer from South Dakota, Jared Bosley, who spoke, and his partner was there also, Mike Cliffel, and they were really upset with Kristi Noem, their governor.
Yes, indeed.
Because she didn't stand with them, because this carbon extraction company went in, and for some stupid reason, a judge sided with the private company and gave them, quote, permission to go on Bosley's property. And the sheriff called me afterwards instead of before, or I'm sure it would have been very different. And I informed the sheriff, look, your job is to protect life, liberty, and property, and not go along with a judge who is totally out of his mind. And I said, the sheriff literally kept the landowner, the property owner, at bay and away while the carbonite extraction company did their survey, drilling down into his land. And so they were offered lots and lots of money to do this. They said no. So they went and told mommy or the judge, and the judge literally violated the property rights of this farmer. And that's why we had him speak. And that's why I went to South Dakota a couple of times last year to work with these farmers and work with local sheriffs. And the sheriff did repent. He was humble enough to realize that he had done the wrong thing. And I said, look, you could sit down with the judge.
Let me stop you there, Sheriff. That's a rarity, though. That's somebody who really, you can work with. And I mean, that's somebody that's valuable. Somebody who can admit, you know what, I blew it on this one. I'm so sorry. I understand now. What a hero.
Right. Well, yeah. And so I told him, I said, you could just sit down with the judge, just you and him, and say, look, Your Honor, you and I both took an oath to uphold and defend the Constitution. These are the basic fundamental rights that our Constitution protects. I'm not going to keep this guy off his property. In fact, if that company comes and the property owner tells him to get off his property, I have to escort him off his property. I don't escort the property owner off his property so some third party can come in and do. This is not eminent domain. This is a private company that's trying to get business to do a pipeline or an underground extraction. No. And you have that discussion with the judge. If the judge still sides with the private company, then the sheriff's going to have to say, I'm sorry, but I'm against you on this. and I will side with the property owner.
I will side with due process. I will side with accountability and transparency on this thing. Now, Sheriff, help me understand, though. I don't even know what a CO2 pipeline is.
Yeah,
what the heck does that even mean?
They want to take the carbon out and put it into environmental issues. You see, because it's supposed to help the environment.
Yeah, but what are we going to do? What's the pipeline do? What do? We take the exhaling of humans and other animals, right?
Mm-hmm.
Isn't that CO2?
Yeah.
And we what? We funnel it through a pipe?
Maybe Eldon has an answer.
Yeah. Basically, at least the idea in Iowa and South Dakota is through largely, from what I understand, the production of ethanol. You have a carbon dioxide or CO2 byproduct, and rather than put that into the air, to take that.
Hold on. Don't the plants breathe that though?
Well, yes, but it seems like they're setting aside that.
But if we plant more trees and more plants and more grass and more breathers of the CO2, it'll like balance out, right?
Don't confuse the environmentalists with the facts, I suppose. But they've decided that CO2 is something that's very deadly, and so they want to put it under extreme pressure and within a certain temperature range to get it like 2200 psi, okay, and to put it in these pipelines, buried the pipelines, and then to pipe it all the way up to North Dakota, and then pump it way down under the ground and release it down there.
Won't it just come back up?
It's kind of strange. Yeah, I would think that there would be some issues there.
And what happens if you continue to redistribute this and pump too much CO2 into the earth? Don't you have unforeseen problems?
Yes, because from what I understand, when if it touches water, then it becomes carbonic acid, which is very good at dissolving things like sandstone or limestone, I believe.
It's going to hit water. There's water down there in the aquifer and all that, right?
Yeah. So, right. And so there's issues, concerns with that. And then, it's not exactly environmentally friendly on several counts.
So when they tell you that it's all a bunch of hot air from the government, it turns out to be true, Sheriff.
Yeah, that's for sure, Sam. But it's most of it is a farce. But except this private company makes a lot of money on it, and they get a lot of money from the environmental groups, and probably.
Oh, so the money's the key.
Well,
sure.
It always?
Sure wouldn't. Yeah, wouldn't be happening without the subsidies and tax credits and stuff. But I was telling my wife
trees and stuff like that. They use a lot of that, CO2.
Yeah, for sure. All these plants do, But yeah, I was thinking if we're going to sequester anything and pump it way under the ground and put it in a pipeline, so we might as well put it like right by DC and take the hot air out of there, and just because that's what's driving so much of this. Well, and New York, you got the headquarters for the United Nations right there.
All right, go to the JBS.org and the New American websites, thenewamerican.com and JBS.org, because they have two things there that are valuable for you. They have a documentary to help you understand what a farce this really is. They also have a petition to help stop carbon capture subsidies. And that's what I mean. It's about the money, ladies and gentlemen. That's the key. Moving on to a couple of other topics before the end of the hour that I want to get to. The Justice Department said the best way to address Google's monopoly and regarding internet search is to go ahead and force them to sell Google Chrome. Force it to sell Chrome, among other measures. What do you think of that, Sheriff? You got the government deciding you're going to just steal the asset of Chrome and get rid of it, sell it to somebody. You've got TikTok, which the government literally tries to shut down and force it to be sold to somebody. I think the government ought to just come and force Sam Bushman to sell Liberty News Radio. What do you think, Sheriff? Just force him to do it.
All right. Well, if it's a good deal, I'll buy it.
But you see what I mean? How does this work? Where does the government get the authority to force these transitions or these changes? It's insane.
Well, that's the thing we were just talking about, forcing the farmer to allow private companies to come in. And that's basically what the government, Sam, it's a democracy. The government gets to do whatever it wants.
Wait a minute. It's not a democracy.
Well, that's what they think.
Yeah. But I look at this and I just go, it's insane. So you say, well, Sam, Google is a monopoly. I agree with that. But just so you know, who created Google? The answer, your government, in bed with the collegiate world, in bed with private business. That's who created Google, right? So they created their own monopoly. Now they want to shut down the monopoly they created? When will they quit meddling?
I thought they loved Google, and they were completely on the side of the politicians. And Google totally works hand in hand with the corruption of Washington, D.C. So I don't get what they're trying to do there.
Eldon?
I don't know, but it seems to be a violation of private property rights. I mean, that's part of your what makes private property rights, to be able to dispose or not dispose of that property. And now forcing somebody to sell, well, okay, that's a violation of those rights.
What do you think we do about it, Sheriff? I mean, at some point they can force you to just, hey, you need to jettison the CSPOA. Boom, it's just gone. I know it sounds like crazy, but I mean, isn't that where we're headed if we allow this stuff to continue?
No, Sam, it's already crazier than that. If you don't follow governmental CDC protocols for your children, they'll come take your children away.
That's true.
I mean, this dictatorial democracy, that's exactly what democracy turned into.
Diego and Ammon Bundy proved that point, didn't they?
Of course. Yeah. And so, you know what? If government officials don't even know what form of government we have, how are they going to be exercising the proper role of government, which they haven't done for decades, maybe centuries? But no, it's gotten way too far. That's why we have JBS and CSPOA and Liberty Roundtable, and we try to work together to wake people up so that we can get our country back to its God-given constitutional American republic. Wow.
And we're going to keep doing it, ladies and gentlemen, because we have absolutely a reason. We have children and grandchildren and loved ones, and man, we got to leave the place better than we found it, and so on. So there's a lot to do, and shame on them for trying to, do this to Google. Hey, they built up Google in the first place. Go study the history, and you'll find out there was a private company that basically was trying to think who did it. I guess what branch of government? There's so many branches of government. It's hard to. I'll have to dig it all up. But anyway, they basically created a corporation that eventually funded and created Google. And now they've created this monopoly, and now you want the government to take down what they built up. And every time they do this, government exerts more control over your life, over your private property, over your business, etc. Now, Donald Trump raised $239 million for the inauguration. They say it's a record. The New York Times reporting this. Sheriff, $239 million for the inauguration. I don't know how much was used because they brought it indoors and slimmed the inauguration down a ton. Where does all that other money go?
To the CSPOA, JBS, and Liberty Roundtable.
Phenomenal. Eldon, you got to dig it. Our ship's come in, buddy.
But that is really good news, isn't it?
Yeah, isn't that wonderful? We're finally going to get funded. But the crazy thing of it is, all three of us are forced by the color of law to pay for Planned Parenthood to kill babies.
Yeah, and the income tax to do their bidding and shut us down and throw us in prison like Ken Cromar if we don't comply.
Yeah.
Other than that, it's not so bad, Sheriff. All right, Donald Trump, they say, is ready to walk away if Russia and the Ukraine don't reach a peace deal soon. Paul Drodju over at thenewamerican.com writes this piece. I really think this is telling. Personally, I think Trump should walk away. I don't know why we're in the middle of it in the first place, Sheriff Mack.
Yeah, I'm tired of being the world's police, and if we'd already made rules about intermeddling and with foreign affairs, Biden wouldn't have been able to give billions to Ukraine. And the truth of that was it was a big quid pro quo, because he was thanking them for having his back when it was obvious that he was doing bribes to Ukraine. And you're not going to get.
Wait a minute. Those are big bribes. I mean, Scott Jenkins ones, even if true, are tiny bribes, Sheriff.
Yeah, no kidding. But Sheriff Jenkins gets arrested for bribery, but of course, the President of the United States, Biden in this particular case, gets nothing, and his entire family have been taking bribes. He's been using his son, Hunter, to get money from all these other foreign countries. So the entire family, nephews, nieces, grandchildren, all of them are taking money from the Biden crime syndicate. And, unless, I shouldn't call him Biden, I'm sorry, the big guy, as he was called.
What do you think of this, though, Eldon? I mean, I look at this and I just go, man, Trump's got so much on his plate to solve. We'll never get it all done in the amount of time that we have. But I think there's a lot of issues we're not paying attention to that are critical, and there's a lot of issues that we're just wasting time on. How do we let the mainstream press control so much of this still with Trump and, the new media and everything else? It's like, shut down the clown show about the illegal alien not getting due process and focus on Scott Jenkins and focus on this pipeline and focus on some of these issues that could really make a difference in the country, right?
Yeah, and at some point you realize that it is not the President of the United States' job to, broker peace between two foreign countries, or to have his administration do that. Now, of course, it would be nice. It's a lot better, in a way, to have him doing that than having the President of the United States funding one side or the other, or trying to, stir up one side against another, or provide them arms, or even, armies to help one side or the other. That certainly doesn't help broker good international relations or anything like that. But in the end, sometimes, and really, it's not his job to broker peace per se, but sometimes the best you can do is just let your neighbors fight it out, and the best that you can hope for is that the violence just is contained within that house and doesn't spread to the rest of the neighborhood.
Let me see. Remind me who's entanglement alliances with none, honest open trade with all.
Yes, that was. I thought it was Washington, but.
Well, no doubt the founders understood that these foreign entanglements are dangerous, to say the least, and I don't understand why Donald Trump should be spending his time, funded by the taxpayers, to negotiate foreign deals between nations that are thousands of miles away, both sovereign countries that we have nothing to do with when it comes to authority or negotiation or anything else. Why are we even involved in it, Sheriff? I don't understand it.
Well, the thing of it is, Sam, it was just like what Eldon was just saying. We're shipping military equipment to them, weapons. Why would not Russia be justified in putting their navy out there on the waters and stopping all those and bombing them and sending them to the bottom of the ocean so that those weapons can't be used against them and their people? That's why so many people were so upset, because Biden was really flirting with World War III and nuclear war.
Well, and sadly, I think that Donald is falling into the trap of the deep state, and he's got deep state pro-war provocateurs, hawkish folks around him. And if we're not very careful, Trump's going to end up becoming the wartime president, whether he likes it or not. Right? Switching gears for the final bit of the show, we created a video for the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association. You can check it out at cspoa.org. It's Our Fight, Our Future. We're going to play this video because it's really cool. Here it is.
Are you ready to stand up for your community and support your local sheriff? Join the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association and become a vital member of the Sheriff's Citizens Posse. At cspoa.org, we empower citizens like you through weekly webinars, arming you with the knowledge to back your constitutional county sheriff. Together, we can uphold our Constitution and ensure liberty and justice for all. Your community needs you now more than ever. Visit cspoa.org and join the Sheriff's Citizens Posse today. Make a difference. Stand for freedom. That's cspoa.org. Your country, your fight, your future.
My name is Sam Bushman. I'm CEO of the CSPOA, and I approve this message. What do you think of that, Sheriff?
That's a good ad.
Yeah, I was going to ask Eldon. I've already heard it and seen it. I was going to ask Eldon. What'd you think?
I like it. Yeah, I do. That's a really nice one.
Yeah, you'll have to go because you can see the video too. And we're basically encouraging folks with talk shows all across the country now to see if they'll play that public service announcement for us, highlighting the value of the Constitutional Sheriff's Posse. And we basically train every week and help the citizens know how to support their sheriffs and understand the proper role of government and everything else. And I look at that and say, man, there's so much that we can be doing that's right. But if you look at the mainstream press, we seem to be so derailed with things that just don't even matter. Like, why are we worried about this illegal alien that basically got taken? Why are we worried about this thing at all? Why is that the top news in the nation, Sheriff? It's insane.
Yeah, for sure, Sam. It's, the CSPOA has changed the landscape of even the narrative about sheriffs has been changed by the existence of the CSPOA. And it's really wonderful to see that. But it's also separated the men from the boys. And the timid sheriffs, the boys part of that don't want to be involved in this and don't want to upset the apple cart. Those are the ones that still need to get off the fence and get involved, because freedom is still the answer, and every American citizen, regardless of race, color, or creed, deserve to be free and deserve to be protected from tyranny and the deep state and the corruption of governments, state, local, and federal. They deserve to be able to go to someone for peace, safety, security, and freedom. And that person is the county sheriff.
By the way, Sheriff Jenkins mentioned the county sheriff is really critical. We call it the county sheriff, America's Last Hope. It's a book. It's available at cspoa.org. Final word to you, Eldon.
Well, I'm just so grateful for, the CSPOA and, Sheriff Mack and all the folks that, reach out and educate these law enforcement officials, especially the sheriffs and the public, about the proper role of government, their proper role as in law enforcement. I mean, that is so important. We've seen that, like you gave the example with talking with the sheriff in South Dakota, who for some reason bowed to the judge and then kind of repented of his ways. Education, as the founder of the John Birch Society said, is the key, and we need to organize and take action. Once we have understood those principles, that's where we can nip so many of these usurpations in the bud, and we can stop them because we see the principle at hand, and that's what the founders did.
Eldon Stahl, everybody, field director for the John Birch Society. Check out the incredible documentary about the propaganda behind the pipelines. JBS.org. Sign the petition to stop subsidies for the pipelines. TheNewAmerican.com. By the way, if you want to check out that incredible promo video, just released by the CSPOA, and you want to become a member of the Posse, the Constitutional Sheriffs and Peace Officers Association, CSPOA.org gets that done. This is Liberty Roundtable Live, syndicated by the Loving Liberty Radio Network. Check out their iPhone and Android apps. Download and listen anytime, anywhere, or online at lovingliberty.net. I'm Sam Bushman for Richard Mack and Eldon Stahl and the good Sheriff Jenkins and yours truly. God save the United States. It is a constitutional republic.